after Ukrainians shot off 6 Attack missiles, who was right up there shooting off the Storm Shadow missiles? Well, it was the Brits. It wasn't the Americans. It was the Brits. Again, they're in the vanguard. They're leading the charge. They are the first ones out there escalating the conflict and risking World War III. Why? Because they are on the verge of collapse as an economy, as a banking system, and as a society. And so rather than suffering a revolution at home, rather than running the risk of an uprising at home, they'd rather start World War III, set the world on fire, and tell the British people, oh, well, guess what? You'll have to go fight the Russians.
Take the first step towards online privacy. Get NordVPN.
When tyranny becomes law, rebellion becomes a duty. So said Thomas Jefferson. Go to bit.ly/lawful tax protest or bit.ly/make-war-history and find out why it is a criminal offence to pay central government or local government taxes in the UK. No, Tom, don't calm down. Calm down. Lots of sweary stuff, please. Lots of sweary.
Lots of swearing. I'm good at that. I'm actually a professional at that.
Lots of sweary rants. And then from you, Alex, lots of wry, smart, witty humour. And of course, fabulous insights on what is going on in the world. So I'm going to post some.
Why? What's going on? Something new happened?
Bloody psyop.
Alex, ready? Wait. I know you're sitting down I hope you're sitting down. Are you sitting down?
Yeah.
Okay. The British were full of shit again.
Yes!
No.
Yes! The British are full of
Over
shit
what
again.
now, you might ask, by the way, as opposed to the other 3 things that they've been full of shit about this morning. Well, actually, the latest one is that Mike Rogers...
Hold on, Tom. I'm going to start with British, and then we'll go into that, right? Half an hour ago, I got upset by something on X, right? And I think this is deliberate, because I just posted a video about the Cloud Pinman strategy for people who don't know. But it's also an assault on culture and on our psyches, right? I can't remember the exact figures. They just announced they're raising something like 520 million pounds from the farmers by taking away their farmland slowly and then giving it to BlackRock, I assume, right? And they're giving 536 million pounds to farmers in Africa.
Yeah.
So it's like, what?
Rich, I have 2 words for you. Oliver Cromwell.
Yes.
Like, I'm serious. Like, I've been saying it for 4 years now. Like, it's time.
It is getting to that.
And that guy might be in the great ape, Jeremy Clarkson. Like, it's hilarious. But, this is where we are today.
I was at the farm.
Remind me, Oliver Cromwell, is that like a boy band?
You're close, Alex, very close. I was at the farmers' protest this week, which was kind of drizzly and...
Oh, really?
Yeah. And it was well attended, given that it was a weekday and the weather was miserable. And I just wanted to remind people that, if you're in the UK, you may want to take part in tax protest. Lawful tax protest. Hold on to your money. You decide where it gets to go. bit.ly/lawful tax protest. Now, Tom, over to you. I just wanted to get that off my chest. So the British are scheming and conniving.
Well, no, for the last week and for the last 2 weeks, we've all been like, who's Trump's FBI director going to be? And I think it could. The Magatards and myself and others are like Kash Patel, and then of course we're getting this. Well, no, the horse trade that's out there is Matt Gaetz for AG, but they have to accept Mike Rogers as head of the FBI. We're like, that's not a trade. And then Trump puts out a thing a couple of hours ago and says Mike Rogers was never under consideration for FBI director ever.
Okay, so tell me about Mike Rogers.
Mike Rogers is a piece of shit. He's a piece of shit, never trumping. He's just a piece of shit, never trumping neocon of the distinctly British variety. That's it. It's not really any more complicated than that. Imagine Lindsey Graham as head of the FBI.
Right.
Or imagine John McCain. Hey, we're going to put John McCain in charge of the FBI. Not John McCain's brain tumor, mind you. So, moment of silence.
Yeah.
Okay. Joke never gets old, folks. Never gets old that we have a moment of silence for John McCain's brain tumor for killing that fucking son of a bitch. No, Mike Rogers was never under consideration. None of these neocons were ever, these hardcore never Trumpers were ever under consideration. They were always floated as New York Times, WAPO, CIA, MI6, talking points to pollute the waters. They were never real. To drive a wedge between Trump and his supporters. That's all they're doing.
Okay,
and they don't know how to do anything else.
British, because I wanted to start off with the British and what's going on in Ukraine, and also what's happening in Britain, its connection to Europe.
Yeah, it's all the same thing. It's all the same story, right, Alex?
Yep, that's what I think. Anyway.
Great, Alex. Thanks. That was really
yeah, no problem.
I try to play straight man for him, and then he plays straight man back, and it's hilarious. I love the routine, by the way. We should take this shit on the road. We make more money than we are doing it this way. But that being said, Alex,
from these conversations, I look forward to them every month. Thank you, Alex. That was great. All right, well, that's it. Thank you, everybody. Links in the description below.
Thank you. Pull the rug now.
Oh, okay.
Well, thank y'all for tuning in. This was fun. Gotta run. I'll fly. World War III is going to start. I need whiskey.
We'll finish while we're ahead. Alex, anything you would like to expand on that? Share your thinking.
Well, where do I start? I don't even know where to start. It's getting things are getting extremely insane. I think that we're teetering on the verge of World War III, but thankfully we have a real statesman on the other side, on the opposite side. We have a real statesman in Vladimir Putin, and so he's not about to give the Brits a gift of escalation, which is what they desperately want. This is exactly what they want. This is why, and once again, I know I'm jumping all over the place, but I've been, well, Tom and I both, we've been drumming this drum that it's not that the United States is dragging poor old Britain into all these imperial misadventures, and then the Brits are always on the wrong side of things because they are too loyal to the United States to decline. The reality is that the Brits are leading the charge, and back in September, it was Keir Starmer who came to visit Joe Biden with a list of targets in Russia to strike, and he wanted Joe Biden to sign off on it. And had Joe Biden signed off on it, guess what? It would be like, oh, the Americans again, they're at it, and poor us, the Brits, we're just so loyal, so we went ahead with this. But if it turns out bad, then they say like, oh, it's the Americans who did it, and gosh, our politicians are so incompetent, they just do whatever the Americans want them to. But that's not how it happened. So it was in the United States that there was possibly a palace coup, and somebody from behind the scenes said, no, you're not doing this. And so Joe Biden had to decline signing off on it, even though they, when the Prime Minister of Britain flies over to Washington to have that meeting, they're not going there to ask the president to sign it. They're going because it's already been agreed. So they're going to sign it, and then they're going to hold a press conference together, and then they're going to make the whole, here we are, the leaders of the free world, making a stand together. Well, they didn't sign off on it, and there was no press conference. Now the equation changed, not because the United States as a United States changed its mind, but because Joe Biden is on his way out, and I guess he's now in a different position. Wanted to spite Obama, wanted to spite the DNC for slighting him, and then also complicating things immeasurably for Donald Trump, and possibly sticking him with a war that he couldn't extricate himself from. But who was, after Ukrainians shot off 6 Attacker missiles, who was right up there shooting off the Storm Shadow missiles? Well, it was the Brits. It wasn't the Americans. It was the Brits. Again, they're in the vanguard. They're leading the charge. They are the first ones out there escalating the conflict and risking World War III. Why? because they are on the verge of collapse as an economy, as a banking system, and as a society. And so rather than suffering a revolution at home, rather than running the risk of an uprising at home, they'd rather start World War III, set the world on fire, and tell the British people, oh, well, guess what? You'll have to go fight the Russians because it's the World War III is on. And then, Boris Johnson and all these people are going to be like, that was close, Anyway, so
Well,
go ahead, Tom.
No, that's fine, Alex. What I'll say is this: I don't think Joe Biden ever gave this order.
Oh yeah, I'm sure he didn't. He didn't.
I don't think Joe Biden was involved in this whatsoever. As a matter of fact, we haven't seen him.
Oh, you think he wasn't even involved at all?
No, I don't think so. I think this was fabricated by the New York Times and the intelligence services.
What? New York Times?
No, that would never happen.
Lie to us?
Lie to us.
Come on, man.
Really?
Come on, man. You ain't black.
Yeah, no, I'm kind of based that way. Like, you know what I mean? And I'll just have to go with it. Yeah, I know. Call me a fuddy-duddy. Call me a conspiracy theory.
What's next? They're going to tell it. Next, you're going to tell me that the BBC would lie to us as well?
Oh, never. Just ask Jeremy Clarkson.
Yeah.
So, no, I don't even think Biden was involved in this. I think that the whole purpose of this is what I tweeted out the other day, which is that, they put this in Biden's mouth that he's not around to contradict it because he's probably being held under wraps at this point. If Joe Biden is even still alive, are we on, or is it, every time Joe Biden shows up, he's like a different height. And, at the end of the day, there's
okay. But that's, according to some studies, people's heights vary because of climate change. Okay.
I know I'm being heightist at this point. That too. Right? And
well, I think it's.
I made jokes about midgets in the past, so I guess this would be part. This would be part of the type. But be that as it may, and all of my heightist, taking all of my heightist biases into account, let us talk about this. From some other framework, which is I don't think that Biden actually issued the order. I think it was created by the intelligence services, put out by the New York Times, put into his mouth in such a way that he can't deal with the problem. He can't contradict it and or won't contradict it because he's not allowed. And then within 48 hours, we get a shoot. We get a report that the Ukrainians shot those same missiles into Ukraine. Now, one of the things that's interesting, having talked to Dexter White about this, and I think I've got his arguments correct, and if I don't, then he will, by the way, correct me behind the scenes, and that'll be the end of it. But you guys can check the math on this. The ATACMS that were sent to Ukraine that we know that they have only have a range of 100 miles. And yet the initial attack here was well beyond that range, even from the forward lines, from where Kursk is. So now the question is the following, and this is a very, very dangerous scenario that gets laid out here. And I think I understand what the actual strategic goal of this would be, as opposed to just running some kind of cover story over a British financial and or political collapse, which is also part of the problem, which is the following. I don't know that they were even ATACMS. They were probably all Storm Shadows with a much longer range. They have the same payload, by the way. The Storm Shadows and the ATACMS have the same 350 kilogram payload, oh, by the way. So the explosions will look exactly the same, oh, by the way. And so now, and this is a very British fucking thing to do, was the goal and the target actually to try and degrade Russia's nuclear triad? Because that would be the strategic escalation that would force Putin to the next level of escalation.
Well, what's Russia's nuclear triad?
The triad that they, how they're going to deliver their nuclear weapons. You have ICBMs, you have air, you have, submarines. Their nuclear triad. It's like we have one, just like, nominally the Brits are supposed to have one, but they don't have a navy anymore, so who gives a fuck? So you degrade their air delivery system. We don't know where those, if let's just assume, for sake of argument, that the British and the Americans have better intelligence than than the three of us sitting here in this room.
Yep.
That's a fair fair assumption. And what if they have knowledge that the Russians have moved forward some of their nuclear air assets within range of Storm Shadow missiles, and that this whole thing was designed as an opportunity to do that, because that would be an escalation that would force Putin's hand. Okay? Because what they're trying to do here, did everybody read the Gray Zone article about Project Alchemy and the British deep? Oh, okay. If y'all haven't read that, Alex has read it. If you haven't read that, you need to read it. Kit Clarenberg has did a wonderful job on this. Full props to him and the staff over at the Gray Zone. They are, of course, leaked this information, which is prima facie evidence that there are adults in the fucking room trying to stop this madness. But Project Alchemy is a deep cover British thing, amalgam, a group funded by the Foreign Ministry, MI6, and the Defense Ministry and they've been running the war for all intents and purposes. Now, whether that's, and it's General Strickland is involved in this and a variety of other things. Oh, by the way, FYI, none of the people that were named are Jews. But sorry, just to make sure that everybody in the room, you salt that to taste, folks. So these people are all just very much Anglo-Saxons. Some of the most brutish people on the planet. I say that as an Italian. I'm allowed. Fuck them. I don't care. They're trying to start World War III. They get everything with both fucking barrels at this point. So I get to be as racist and as heightist as I want to be. So if that's the case, if all of this is true, now whether that this is a fairy tale in order to blame it on the British, I don't think so. This is classic stuff. Point by point by point, an Operation Gladio style will leave resistance behind inside Russia in order to create terrorism, like all this stuff. It's all right there, right? But every bit of the escalation, including the talking points, from bombing the Kerch Strait Bridge to bombing Nord Stream 2 to the terrorist attack on the Moscow Opera House to the Zaporizhzhia nuclear power plant, every one of these was designed as a distinct and obvious crossing of Russia's red lines to get them to escalate in order to get us to where we are today.
And the purpose of the escalation is to get the US involved and for Britain to use it as a cover for defaulting.
Now, it gets even weirder than that, folks. We also have to stop Donald Trump from taking power. How do we do that? Oh, well, how about we put into the words of our senile current president, who just betrayed the entire Davos British remnant Evil Corp Central conglomeration by turning off the steal, voting for Trump, making a deal with Trump in order to make sure that he gets elected. Well, we have to stop Donald Trump from taking office. Well, how do you do that, Tom? Well, that's easy. Your 25th Amendment out Joe Biden by putting into his mouth that he's going to start World War III by recklessly giving Ukraine permission to shoot ATACMS inside Russia at this moment in time as a lame duck president. What does that do? Well, now, at that point, the vice president and 2/3 of the cabinet can get together and invoke Section 3 of the 25th Amendment to get rid of Joe Biden for cause because he's clearly not in his right mind. The man's trying to start World War III and blame it on Joe Biden. And, oh, by the way, notice how Congress hasn't adjourned yet. They're still in there running around like lunatics, every day, turbo approving to lifetime appointments hundreds of judges around the federal courts to pack them full of shitbag communists. Okay, they're doing it. Like Elizabeth Warren's out there quote tweeting herself as she live blogs how they're betraying the country. Like, there's a reason for this. I really think in my heart of hearts, they are setting up for a replay of 1913. That's when the British got us to pass the 16th and 17th Amendments in the Federal Reserve Act over Christmas. The 16th Amendment was never properly ratified. The 17th Amendment gave us the direct election of senators, which destroyed the proper bicameral functioning of our legislature. We're all downstream of that today. And obviously, we all know what the Federal Reserve has done, along with the income tax. Those two things together have literally transformed the country into what we have today. So how do you do that? Well, you do that. You leave Congress in session, they vote to put Kamala Harris in place. And then all that's needed between then and January 6th, folks, is a good old-fashioned British false flag blaming Russia for a dirty bomb going off in the middle of fucking Ukraine. And Kamala Harris, the new commander-in-chief, says, we're going to war. Good movie script, ain't it? It actually almost be a good movie. You know, it actually almost make a compelling Bond movie if their writers didn't suck. But that's the world as conceived of by these fucking lunatics at MI6. I don't care if we're talking Skripal, MH17, all of them. Every one of these, the chemical weapons attacks at Gouda, all of them. They're all this kind of skullduggery fucking horse shit. And you have to, and as Alex is, this is the point, is that when you really wrap your brain around all this stuff, like, why wouldn't they do so? Because this is existential to them. They have every incentive to threaten us with nuclear war. Because we dared to vote wrong. Now, I don't know if I'm right about this, but here's a scenario for you. Is it plausible? You fuck yeah, right, it is plausible. And all I can hope is that there's, you know, grown-ups everywhere going, don't do that. Now, here's the interesting part. Ready? Let's talk about Russia's retaliation.
Well, hold on.
So they shoot off this
Before you
thing.
go there,
Okay.
Before you go there, I just want to check. So Kamala Harris then declares war, and then can she then invoke, like Martin Armstrong suggesting, martial law, which prevents Trump coming to power, or
She can try that shit. That's cute. Then the military turns around and claps her ass in fucking jail. I don't think that. This is the part where I'm like, you know, I agree with Marty that that's a possibility. That those are all possibilities, but like there's certain end games here that don't work out, right?
Okay.
So you've got to try this thing in the court of public opinion. You've got to get Putin to do something really dumb. Now, what did Putin do in retaliation? This is why it's important.
Yeah.
Because what he set off, the missile, whatever, we don't know what that actual thing was that they set off. It could be any number of possible things. Both weapon systems that the Russians say they have, but we don't believe that they actually do have, blah, 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 blah. What they set off was, I think, and again, I could be wrong about this, a missile that was capable of reaching Europe, but not the United States. Which then says, hey, look, we're not threatening you. Stay out of it. This is Europe's war. They asked for it. They want it. If they want it, they got it, Toyota. You asked for it, you got it, Toyota. They'll, right? That, but we're not threatening you with this. And if that's the move that Putin made, that's a level of diplomacy. As Alex pointed out at the beginning of the show, Putin as a statesman says, okay, challenge accepted. Your terms are acceptable. Here you go. Europe. You're the problem. The United States is out of it. Now, if the United States washes their hands of this, says, that's your problem, I think peace breaks out pretty fucking quick. But the other side of it is that they have escalated. And in the minds of those fucking crazy assholes over in the bowels of, you know, British Perfidious Albion Central, i.e. Project Alchemy, they're seeing it differently than that. From their perspective, oh, look, Putin played a card. He's weaker than we think he is. We can keep going after him. Because they never interpret they see these things differently than we do. They don't listen. Because they're not interested in listening. They're interested in what they think is winning. And they think that the closer we get to the moment where Russia has no other option but then to launch a nuclear weapon against a target in an escalatory scenario that is undeserved, they will be able to press their advantage like they did when they got him to go first into Ukraine. And they're going to play that same propaganda thing over and over again. It's the same bullshit argument about, oh, this is a Christian just war theory, which then they want to sell to Americans who are clearly not interested in any of this. But it's one thing when you're talking, you know, like they're literally trying to do the same script that they ran on Hitler, same script they ran on the Kaiser. Nothing else is new, and they're trying to probably, I would think, work behind the scenes all of this and trying to put domestic oligarch pressure on members of Congress saying, if we don't go there, we're all going to lose a lot of money because we invested in Project Ukraine.
Yeah.
So we have to go to war, just like we had to go bail them out in World War I and World War II. Otherwise, the whole system would collapse. But it's a different world today, knowing full well that the United States is right now, for the first time in its history, conducting independent monetary policy. But not yet fiscal policy, because the Biden administration is still in office. So now the big question is, will the military intervene between now and then? And then if that happens, in order to like wipe out the vestiges of the now illegitimate Biden administration and just shut everything down until and then manage the transference of power, which of course the left in this country will not accept, and they will go up in arms, and then Gavin Newsom will start screaming about friggin' secession and yada yada yada, and keep targeting the bond markets. This is the way these people think. This is the way they have it gamed out in their head, and this is what's got me worried. And God forbid, I hope I'm fucking wrong.
We do have an uncanny track record.
And that all of this has already been gamed out, and they're just wriggling like, you know, they're like that dog that refuses to submit. And now everybody is getting to the point now where they're getting tired of the dog, and now they're reaching for the 9mm.
Yeah. I was saying you do have an uncanny ability to read the room, this being the global room, and my metaphor's falling apart. Anything for you, Alex?
Well, I hope that Tom is wrong, except that it makes sense. The whole construct makes sense from everything we know about how these people operate. I'm going to put a little bit of optimism on the side of the American, let's say, military establishment. You know, the Pentagon, the people who are there, the people who understand what's going on, and who are not part of the brutal, degenerate British establishment. And because this is, you know, this is what prevailed in September when Starmer wanted Biden to sign off on those on the long range strikes at that time. So it's clear that there are people in there who are not on board with this. I kind of expect that there must be fairly extensive backroom communications between American generals and their Russian counterparts, and that they want to avoid the war, and that they are probably cooperating to make the war not happen. You know, we saw that when the Israelis were going to launch a missile strike against Iran, and then, you know, miracle, highly classified documents leak out, which are giving away the nature of the attack and the targets. So these things are happening, and I expect that there's a very, very heightened sense of danger over the next 60 days, and that this has hopefully prompted increased cooperation between the two sides, and that even some of the people, you know, who might otherwise be loyal lieutenants to these people are going to have second thoughts, and who might cooperate with the defenders of peace. You know, leak out documents, not comply with orders, not execute orders correctly, put wrong coordinates in their targeting software,
Right.
Shit like that. You know, because these things are real. These things do happen,
Yes.
and they go up to assassinating the people who are the ringleaders.
Yeah.
So I hope that in that sense, history will repeat itself, and that the defenders of peace will prevail over the next 60 days. And then, once the 60 days have lapsed, I think that once Donald Trump is commander-in-chief, and let's hope that that does happen indeed, then maybe we dodge the bullet. So
Yeah.
I pray for that.
So do I, Alex. I hope you're absolutely correct about that. I really, really, truly do. I think you are. But I would be remiss if I didn't at least lay the scenario out.
Oh no,
for
no.
everybody.
The scenario is absolutely the scenario is compelling. I have no doubts that this is what they want to do. That this is how they want to play it, because they have to achieve two things. They have to achieve getting rid of Donald Trump, and they have to achieve escalation against Russia. That's two things that they want to achieve. So the way you laid it out, that would be a way to get both of those things done.
Yeah.
But
and there may be another couple of other ways that could be done. Again, but this is one of them. I lay it out there for people to chew on.
Yeah.
And what's important, but at the same time, and I also agree with you that we have a lot of evidence to say that there are adults in the room going, yeah, this is not happening. My biggest problem, however, Alex, if it ever gets to the point where there's a congressional moment here, right, where Congress has to get involved, and they actually use Congress to bless all this shit, is that the members of Congress, we have a lot of them that are, one, compromised, two, fellow travelers who believe in this shit, and then the third group, which is the most dangerous. The third group is the ones that don't know any better and that believe their briefings that come from their staff, and that staff is all compromised. And then they make what they think are the right choices based on bad information. And this is one of the things that has me. This is the one thing about what the proposed cabinet by Trump, laying aside the Matt Gaetz story, which we can talk about in a bit, is Tulsi Gabbard at DNI. Because Tulsi Gabbard at DNI being what is that position? It's really the traffic cop between all the intelligence agencies, filtering out the good information from the bad, implementing the president's will to get the information that he wants, blah, 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 blah. And we know where her heart is on all this stuff. And we know where her proclivities lie. Her bias is towards, good information and peace rather than, right? So, rather than the opposite. So that's why she's in that position. But that's why he wants her in that position, because that sends a massive signal to all the intelligence agencies that the fucking horse shit stops flowing upwards. Stop feeding us bullshit. We know what that looks like. We're not mushrooms. We don't need bullshit to grow. Okay? We're real men and women. We eat steak. Fuck off. Well, in her case, probably not. I don't know. But, I think she's vegan. But my point is, this is the reality, right? And they have to fight that as well, because once they no longer have a direct conduit of bullshit to the president, an unimpeded flow of bullshit to the president, they lose all of their power, and that's one avenue of how you drain this whole process, and you disempower this process, and you dismantle it. Has anybody noticed a couple of interesting developments around Europe? I say, hey, look, Putin has made it effectively abundantly clear. We're not threatening you, U.S. We're threatening Europe. Has anybody noticed? Emmanuel Macron has been completely and utterly fucking silent. That's one. Number two, all of a sudden, Olaf Scholz grew a pair and said, "That's it. We're not involved in this anymore." Now, Olaf Scholz is in a very difficult position. Why? Because Habeck and Baerbock are British assets as being members of the Greens. They represent the British influence over German politics. And Scholz has been getting the whispers from, guess who? I keep bringing his name up, Gerhard Schroeder, the former SPD chancellor of Germany, who was instrumental in getting the Nord Stream 2 pipeline built, has very good contacts inside Russia, very good relations with Gazprom and Putin and everybody else. So, we got Scholz on one day saying one thing, we've got Scholz saying something else the next day, and oh, by the way, I have a couple of Germans on the ground feeding me at least the regular news flow coming out of Germany. And this guy Pistorius was supposed to be the guy handpicked to replace Scholz in any snap election, and he's been taken off the table. Gone. Meaning that threat, and he was a real threat of meet the new boss, same as the old boss. Meaning the SPD gets to be put back in control, the Greens get sidelined, and we have Pistorius, who's going to give us exactly the same German foreign policy that we had before. We have Frederick Merz, head of the CDU. You go for snap elections. You firewall AfD. You get another Merkel-like grand coalition between the SPD and the CDU. But you've got two fucking jackasses running. But you have continuity of shit of crap at the top of the German government. Nothing changes. You have a new government, but it's exactly the same as before, just with different party labels. The Greens have been sidelined, but we have the same thing. Pistorius is now out of the picture. That's very important. That puts Frederick Merz on the fucking hot seat over at the CDU. He's got a state. And moreover, this is still going on because we still haven't had governments sat in Thuringia, Brandenburg, and Saxony because they can't form governments without AfD or BSW, Sarah Wagenknecht, who's also saying fuck no to all this.
Yeah.
So you now have a near majority of representation in those three East German states. And if the Greens lose those 6 seats in the Bundesrat, the Green mafia is disempowered, and the German government flips overnight. And so everybody within Germany is fighting tooth and claw to maintain their position, the same way that they're fighting tooth and claw within the American system right now, which is emblematic of the fight over Matt Gaetz as AG. And you can see, and once you start seeing it this way, folks, you can't unsee it. It's all the same shit in different venues. Same shit, different day.
Okay.
Meanwhile, the UK trending going right down the rabbit hole, right down the slide into toxic death. And in May, if the German government flips and the French government stays out of this, Britain could wind up getting isolated here. And then all Putin has to do is blow up a British military base, which is now, he's declared as fair game. He's basically said, I'm at war with Britain. And then you light off a fucking nuke and you nuke a fucking British military target. Boom, done. And everybody else stands back and goes, that's nice. Sucks to be you. Check, please. And then this thing ends. Wouldn't that be beautiful? For everyone.
Yeah.
Especially my friends in Britain.
Yeah.
Oh, yes, because it ain't looking good here at all. It just isn't. And there's no way we have of removing the government other than sort of mass protests and strikes. There's no conversation for strikes. The protests, they keep dividing, just their divide and rule strategy. This whole thing about giving money to the farmers in Africa, well, then you'll stoke up more divide and rule domestically between the different communities in Britain. And then I can't believe some of my friends actually buy the horseshit from The Guardian that farmers have got far too much money and they're holding onto the land and it's preventing people moving in to invest in farming.
No, it's preventing Londoners from buying up estates and avoiding the inheritance tax, just like Jeremy Clarkson originally bought his farm for the purpose of. And the BBC tried to corner him on that while he was there, and he just laughed at them and went, yeah, that is why I did it. And that's why everybody else wants to do it today. And it's bullshit. And that's how it started, and that's not where I am today. Now I'm here with them. I stand with them. The Big Ape did unbelievable freaking work.
Yep.
That day. And give it up to that guy. He's a very Trump-like figure to me in this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah. in that he was a bad, in many ways he was a bad and kind of selfish man, yada yada yada, did his thing, made money off and he's literally said, like, during Brexit and all of this stuff, I used to sit around with my friends in our posh little, London establishments having lunch and complaining about Brexit and complaining about Little Britain and all of this stuff. And now I'm out there with these people and I'm like,
yeah,
I'm not a part of that anymore. I'm not that person anymore. And you can see it. It's real. He's not that good an actor. You can see it. When you watch Clarkson's Farm, you can see it.
Yeah.
And you can see the conversion and you can, and you watch it happen. And being a guy who used to do small farming and knowing how fucking hard it is and what it takes from you to do what it costs. Why I don't do it anymore. Because you couldn't do it well and do this. Right? He came into that same state of understanding, and good for him, and good on him for doing it, and then good on him for then using that platform to try and make a difference and try and really illuminate what needs to be said at a moment in time when they are the target. Wow.
Yeah, there is that. More and more people waking up. More and more people waking up. Okay. The American cabinet. Matt Gaetz and Bondi.
It's okay. Matt Gaetz was always a stretch goal. Excuse me. As AG, I love Matt. I think that's great. All the ethics stuff about him is all like honeypot. Not it. 9/10 of it is all. Shit.
But
Gaetz was always a stretch goal. He was always a stretch goal. They dangled him out there as bait to find out who was really, really willing to play all their political capital on the line to try and stop him. They know that he has a backup copy of the hard drive off of Hunter Biden's laptop. Because he said it. He entered into the congressional record, this fucking guy. Like, this is serious. So here's another scenario for you. He's not going to be senator. DeSantis came out this morning and said he's not going to be senator. Gaetz has said he's not going back to the Congress. So where do you think he's going to wind up? The most likely obvious, it's very clear, obvious plan. Assistant Attorney General to Pam Bondi, who he's worked with hand in glove in the past. They have very good working relationship together. It's foreign politics, folks. And she's good. And she's a good choice.
So he's going to be her second.
And that's the current plan. The Dexter White and I game plan this out. Literally 7:00 this morning, I'm waking up, making coffee, and he's texting me with all this shit, and we're going back and forth. I'm like, okay, and I'm trying to get up to speed, and eventually we got through it all. And by 9:45, when I had to get off to do a phone call, literally we did 2.5 hours this morning, and then I was on a podcast at 10:00. So I've been talking to him all freaking day. I'm exhausted. And we game planned a lot of this out. And he said, no, actually, if you think about it, he's actually more effective as Assistant Attorney General than he is as Attorney General, because now he doesn't actually have to stand up there and do the press conferences and do all the other bullshit. He can just go out there and really start knocking heads. And
he won't need to go through confirmation.
I don't know that. I don't know that. I don't know about. I can't. I can't say. Most likely not. But I don't know. That's for us to speculate. You asked at the beginning of this before we hit record, Rich. You're like, Tom, you look exhausted, but you don't have to do this one if you don't. I'm like, no, there's too much important information to get out into the fucking public at this moment in time. Too many important ideas, right? It's important. Whatever. It's I'll sleep eventually. Who gives a shit? I got Sunday. I'll catch up then. Who cares?
Plenty of time to sleep after you die.
Yeah, whatever. It doesn't. So.
Which, if we handed to the Britons, it could happen much sooner than we would like. But
Rich, I have a question for you, actually.
Yes.
Sure. How much do you know about what's going on with the Southport investigation, or whatever is going on with that?
Okay, I know a little bit about it, and there's very, very little information. And the government have done something that they really don't have any powers to do, which I'll come to. So the stuff that I have heard over on X.
Okay, so just sorry, I hate to interrupt you. Just background for the viewers, because most of them might not be aware of what Southport is.
Yeah.
So this was in 31 July, 29 July. When was it? That some immigrant in England
stabbed 3 girls, and there was conversations going around that it was a Muslim, and there was a lot of unrest. Which I don't think there was that much unrest, but I think the government overemphasized.
The government used it as a psyop to crack down on protests, dissent, free speech, all of that.
Crack down on memes as well and hurty words. So people ending up.
Yeah, they arrested somebody for singing "Everybody's a Kung Fu Fighting." And I'm not exaggerating. That's actually on record.
Yes, and then also somebody got arrested for actually filming one of these protests. They said, and the judge decided that she was inciting the protest when she was actually just filming it. So all that sort of stuff going on, and the government did overplay it. They sort of did a very loose lockdown. I was working in a small town in rural countryside. That's where my office was, and we were told not to go in because the far right were going to turn up. Are you kidding? In this middle class village where everybody votes Green or Lib Dem and goes to Quaker meetings, the far right are going to turn up, really? government have put a notice, or the Speaker has put a notice preventing members of Parliament discussing this issue in Parliament, which is a violation of the 1689 Bill of Rights. Now, the Bill of Rights in England, Tom, that I've been looking into and stuff, actually gives stronger protections than the US Bill of Rights. The only thing is we don't know about it because they took it out of law school in the early 70s. But one of the things it says in the Bill of Rights is that there should be no impediment, I can't remember the exact wording, on the free speech of members of Parliament. They can speak freely. There should be no impediment on them whatsoever. And the Bill of Rights cannot be repealed by Parliament because it set them up. And it states specifically that these rights are in perpetuity and cannot be changed.
When did this come into existence?
1689. 1689 English.
1689, just a year after the Glorious Revolution.
Yeah.
Oh wow! I never knew about this.
I actually recorded a video with a guy about an expert on the Bill of Rights on my channel. I can send it to you if I remember.
Oh yeah, that video. Okay,
You
now
remember? You remember the one that you subscribed and liked and shared and commented on and spread it all over?
exactly. That's right. That
Maybe you
one.
need
Yes.
to watch it. Maybe you need to watch it again.
Oh man.
But there's a complete suppression on this story. Complete suppression. And Keir Starlin is cracking heads and living true to his namesake with the land grab and the online speech bill. And also they're talking about bringing in a bill that would mean that 16-year-olds don't have access to the internet or the social media. Of course, in order to do that, everybody has to have some sort of ID verification to get onto the internet to make sure.
If you want to deprive 16-year-olds of the internet, then you're going to have a revolution on your hands.
Oh, there's all sorts of stuff they're going to try. I mean, I think there's just too much too fast, which in a way ties in with Cloud Pivot because it's an assault on our psyche. It's an assault on our morale. But at the same time, more and more people are getting riled up, and it will come to a point, like Gerald Celente says, when you've got nothing to lose, people will lose it. You've got nothing to lose. People will lose it. What have I got? There's talk. Rishi Sunak has said that maybe we should go to war with Russia and bring in conscription. Fuck. You send your kids to school. You're not sending them to war. You're not sending my kids to war. You're bloody war. And I think information flows far too freely for the establishment. They don't like that.
Yeah.
So, happy days.
But do you see this scandal potentially bringing down Starmer?
There isn't a constitutional way of bringing him down.
There isn't.
There isn't. Because his Labour Party, he got rid of the liberty-loving left wing. The election got rid of the liberty-loving Tory MPs, about 100 of them. There's no opposition in Parliament. He got a massive unearned majority, and the new MPs that have come in, they're all WEF central office blow-ins. They've not come up from those constituencies. They're not representing the local people. They're just career politicians that have been planted in by central office, that have met Keir Starlin's criteria. He's purged the Labour Party of any, revolutionary spirit or ethos. And then just something to say that I don't think there's much about this on social media. I am very suspicious about what happened with Galloway's election. There was
yeah, what did happen with Galloway's election?
There was some shenanigans, I suspect. So a bunch of ballot boxes. We don't have machines here. It's all done paper. There's all these polling stations, and they have these black boxes with these plastic ties. You can't get into them, and they're numbered, and they have a location on them. And then there are observers, independent observers, and then they're taken to the town hall where they're counted. And there are independent observers, and there are observers from the different parties. It's all done openly. However, allegedly, a bunch of ballot boxes turned up late at night when the count was going on that weren't numbered, that didn't have location markings. And of course, the mainstream media aren't going to pick this story up because they're the mouthpieces for the establishment.
But there's also Andrew Bridgen recently lost his election in a very, very suspicious way.
Yeah, there were shenanigans with Andrew Bridgen because this was the fourth time he was running for election in his constituency, and each time he increased his majority.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
he revived his constituency because he brought businesses in. It was doing really, really well, but he was a thorn in the side of the establishment. So
Yeah.
you get rid of Galloway, and you don't really have a mouth. You don't really have any mouthpiece for the left, for the liberty-loving left. And now Galloway and Chris Williamson, who's the deputy leader of the Workers' Party, and I'm sure you watch my interviews with Chris Williamson regularly, Alex.
Of course.
Tom doesn't. Tom at least tells the truth about it, right?
Ouch.
Oh,
Ouch. Ouch.
I barely have enough time to do the podcasts that I'm invited on.
I know. But at least you don't try and curry favor with me like Alex does, Tom, right?
Me curry favor with anyone? That's off brand.
Well, perhaps
I'm not allowed to buy like the brand book. I've been told this multiple times now.
I just always say things that will please other people, whether they're true or not. So
yeah, that's absolutely your ethos, Alex. Every step of the way, dude.
You're such a piece
I love you.
Alex.
I mean, flattery will get you everywhere. Like,
yeah, there you go. But flattery and a loaded gun will get you even further.
Yeah, they are supporting. So the Workers' Party is supporting the farmers, and I think the Workers' Party, one of the parties on the left, is actually awake to the WEF agenda. So credit to Galloway and Chris Williamson. So that's some of the state of play in the UK. Very, very exciting times. We don't have a Trumpian figure, or anybody like that. We don't have a Marine Le Pen. We don't have. I don't know who the head of the AfD in Germany is. We don't have Maloney or an Orban. God, please, God, could we have an Orban, a proper sovereigntist, who's articulate and stands for principles like peace?
They are systematically eliminating these people as soon as they get their number. It's only the obedient toadies whose careers are assured.
Yeah, and just on obedient toadies, the Tory party, the new leader of the Tory party, Kemi Badenoch, she's WEF, and there were three candidates. One of them dropped out. The one she was opposing when it was a race of two, he's also WEF. So, which WEF government would you like?
This is why I said from the beginning, at the outset, 2 words for you: Oliver Cromwell. Like I mean, and I brought this up to Alex Mercouris at the Duran ages ago, and he looked at me and he was like, and you could see it on his face. Like Alex didn't want to admit it to me that I was right, but then he's like, "Sadly, Tom, I think you're correct about that," or something along those lines. And I'm like, yeah. And then he proceeded to tell us, like, and Oliver Cromwell was nobody before he decided to just pick up and start doing what needed to be done. And it came up out of nowhere because we were discussing who could a potential Oliver Cromwell would be, and of course, the first name on everybody's lips would be Nigel Farage. But no, I don't think Farage is that person. I don't think he's ever been that person. If he wanted to be that person, he would have been that person 10 years ago.
Yeah.
And that's fine. If that's Nigel's gig, that's fine. I don't have a problem with that. He may be whatever. I'm not going to speculate there, but that means it's going to have to be somebody else.
Yeah.
And I don't know who that person is, and I don't think anybody does. But it's going to be somebody. It's not going to be Galloway. It's certainly not going to be Jeremy Clarkson, and it's certainly not going to be Nigel Farage. But that spirit coming across from multiple. But look at where they come from. Look at what those 3 men. Right now, just thinking about literally just popped into my head as we thought about it. You have Nigel Farage from the right, you have George Galloway from the left, and you have Jeremy Clarkson from effectively the ex-London elite set.
Yeah.
Whatever I guess you would call the public school boy set, right?
Well, Nigel,
he's not the public school. He's definitely a private school boy.
Yeah,
right?
Nigel Farage has that background as well because he was
right. And so they're all kind of
they're all Galloway.
Kind of public.
Not Galloway. He grew up in a council estate in Glasgow.
Okay. But the point being is that we have a mix of people here from different walks of life, and Jeremy Clarkson was a member of the establishment. He's like a celebrity. And you have Farage, who's came up out of the pub set. And you've got Galloway, and who's in effect a dissident from
Farage is also very
Yes,
well
it's
connected in the financial industry.
He is.
Oh, that's good, yeah.
With the hedges and the brokerage and the banks.
Mhm. So I mean, it's a very interesting mix of people, but I don't think anybody. What they represent is very interesting because they represent a revolt, just like Trump around him has gathered all these people. One of the memes that goes around is like, "Oh look, all of these people used to be Democrats: Donald Trump, Tulsi Gabbard, RFK." Right? Like it's the same kind of thing. It's that there's a groundswell happening that these people represent, and the even if all they are they're not the revolutionary, for lack of a better term, which is a term I hate. They are the people that will allow for the expression of that to have to come about later on.
Yeah,
they will someone else will percolate up out of the zeitgeist, from the ground that they have already tilled. Effect is what I'm trying to get at.
Yep. And then from my read on how this is going to roll out in the UK, more and more protests, more and more money printing, more and more authoritarianism from the government, and more protests as a pushback. And at some point, something's going to tip over. I just got to say, Tom, Alex, you can't watch this video yet because I haven't posted it. Okay, so just to warn you, to say before you say, "Oh, I've seen that one," right? I interviewed a doctor, Dr. Callum Miller, about the assisted suicide bill. I mean, it's assisted dying bill that Labour are putting through, right? And I know they've got it in Netherlands, they've got it in Belgium, they've got it in Canada. They're bringing it through here, and it's just so upsetting. It's just so upsetting.
You know that today, fully 4% of all deaths in Canada are them putting people to sleep.
No,
4%.
4%.
4%. For things like being poor, for having no hope, for being depressed.
It's evil. It's absolutely evil. And Hitler had something very similar, the Action 4 program.
Yeah, well, you see, in Canada, they're really closeted fanboys and girls of Hitler. I'm not talking about ordinary Canadians.
The real Nazis are. I'm allowed to use the actual term, right? Because
it's like the whole parliament gave a standing ovation to an actual Nazi, knowing full well what they were doing. It wasn't a mistake.
No, I know.
Yeah,
it's. I don't use this word lightly. It's satanic, folks.
It is. It is evil. It's absolutely.
I don't use this word. It's pathetic, and it's all those things. It's satanic, and they're rubbing our noses in it.
Yeah.
And you can only do that for so long. There's a lot of people out there with learned helplessness. There's a lot of people who have become comfortable with their misery, and then there are a lot of people who are going to be like, "Excuse me," and then they have to look at their children.
That was the end of part 1. Look out for part 2.